Hey guys, what's up? It's Ashlyn here. As if you didn't know, I mean, you clicked on my channel. Alright, so the last part one that I did for the haul was about. Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. Trinity, stop. um, the haul that I did was left us with 6 books that were left in the maybe pile. So with those 6 books that we have from the maybe pile, we're going to go ahead and read a chapter from each of them. Now think of this like when you watch a new series on Hulu or something, and they do a pilot episode to start off the series. It's basically like a whole thing of like what the series is in regards to and what's going to happen and things like that, just to kind of pull you in. So I'm hoping that these books, I don't know if I'm hoping, I'm just thinking that these books are going to do that, but I'm not sure. Sorry, my incense burner's going out that way now, but there's nothing forcing it to go out that way. Weird. Alright, so anyway, give me a second, and then we'll go ahead and get into everything. Also, really quick, I don't know if you guys have seen this new setup I have, but there's a Serenity, and then there's the lights. So this is like the best time to be reading. And it's like 2 o'clock in the morning. Give me one second. I have a cat. Serenity! What are you doing? Okay, but anyways, we're just gonna go ahead and get into this, alright? You guys ready? First book is And Then There Were Four by Nancy Werlin. Okay? I'll read the synopsis. It says, 5 very different students at a private high school are brought together under mysterious circumstances. The popular and kind Antoine Dubois, the physically awkward Sarah Linda de la Fleur, who has a big crush on him, Antoine's best friend, the wealthy, arrogant Evangeline Psalm, Martha McKenyon, the openly, defiantly gay transfer student, and Caleb Colchester Jr., the brooding, reclusive son of a famous doctor. Before these 5 can figure out why they've been summoned, the roof of their meeting place collapses. Hold on. Alright, and they just barely escaped the catastrophe. Soon a second freak accident does claim the life of one of them, and little by little they piece together a shocking but plausible theory that their parents are working together to kill them all. Is it true, and if so, why? But most important, can the teenagers figure out a way to save themselves? As the urgency builds, this unlikely group will gradually bond, some in love, all in friendship, while struggling to stay safe against the odds. You'll be desperate to discuss this thrilling page turn with a friend as soon as you reach its surprising, satisfying conclusion. So let's just go ahead and dive in, right? It is from 2017. Chapter 1, Caleb. It is your new nightly ritual, as automatic as showering or brushing your teeth or thinking about her. You feed innocent paper into the teeth of the strutter, then you put the scraps on the floor. You shape them into a circle or a square, or you did this once. Whimsically, a hand holding a cane. The pattern can be anything. As long as you position it in front of your dorm room door. That way, if you leave the room that night, in the morning you will know you did it. Whatever it is. The paper shreds have never been disturbed yet, not once, which is surprising and interesting. You're uncertain what to make of this. One thing is true. You are not a little boy anymore. You are 17 and you don't believe in mommy keeping you safe or in friends having your back or in anybody, including you, understanding the difference between good and evil. You do, however, believe in the indifference of humanity and the absolute inevitability of your own destruction. You never asked to be what you are. Why you? At this point, you rarely bother to ask that question. Why is a child's question, and there's never a good answer, not from him, not for you. Because that's the answer. His answer, and now also yours. Because you are a monster. Because you are too damn fucking tired. One day soon, maybe tomorrow, you will stop fighting. You will go down. You will be done. For tonight, though, you shape the hand and cane again, working the confetti to represent her small, determined fingers. You haven't bothered to learn her name, and you don't plan to. She's nothing to do with you, but her world is a good place. You felt sure of that from the first time you saw her. You're glad for her and that she lives there and not where you do. She's alive in the world. It is enough for you. And that's the end of chapter 1. Thoughts are, uh, that's literally a front and back page. I don't even know. I feel like I have to go into a second chapter, but I'm not quite sure because the next chapter title is Sarah Linda. It's literally Caleb and Sarah Linda, Caleb, Sarah Linda, Caleb, Sarah Linda, Caleb, Sarah Linda. Like, I thought there were other people involved in this. I'm kind of trying to see something here. I don't know what to make of this, guys. Do anybody else's names pop up as chapters in this? Okay, that's weird. This is literally just Caleb and Sarah Linda. I don't really know what to make of this, but this is, interesting. I guess what we're gonna go ahead and do, which I don't want to, really. I mean, I do, but I don't. But we're gonna go to chapter 2, because I can't just decide on a book based on 2 pages. It sounds interesting. Kind of, sort of. College dorm and things like that, but I'm not quite sure. Chapter 2, Sarah Linda. I took the long way through campus in the storm on purpose, so I'm certainly not lost. The Rockland Academy carriage house is somewhere ahead in the woods according to the map that was attached to my invitation. I'll get there, but in the meantime I am dallying all I want. In the October rain, I lift Georgia and twirl in the middle of the path. I only revolve once, but naturally I slosh puddle muck on myself. I do not fall, I stay balanced, so there. Thunder rumbles somewhere in the distance. For your information, I don't lean on Georgia heavily when I walk home anymore. I just press down gently. Some people assume she is an affectation. I like that in some ways, but in others it seems like an insult to Georgia, who despite her decorations is far from a fashion accessory. My twirl throws my hood back and rain beats on my head, which I like the feel of. It is real, and I am glad to be alive, and glad to be Sarah Linda Della Floor, and glad to be outside in the most persistent storm in the New York area in a dozen years. 16 is way too old to have never been outside in a storm. I turn my face upward to the sky, which is opalescent. Great word. You can almost taste it when you say it. Speaking of taste, the raindrops on my lips are earthy, not in a bad way. I am late for the meeting, so Georgia and I go faster. I don't limp much anymore except when my foot hurts or I am tired, and according to the campus map, I peeked at it again. The old carriage house is there. With its gray stone covered by ivy, the carriage house merges with the woods like a fairy tale cottage. It has arched eaves and gingerbread trim, and it has a turret, and it is adorable, and I want it, I want it, I want it. Who would not want a home like that? Although, yes, even in the rain, I see the stone is crumbling, the paint is peeling, half the shutters are missing, and also there's a loose shutter banging with the wind against a window. I don't care, however. The school might have thrown this place away, but I know what it could be if someone such as me loved it. Geranium flower boxes and colorful rag rugs, and up in the turret an armchair and a footstool and a tea cozy. I'm not entirely sure what a tea cozy is. I will look it up if I remember. And also, of course, my books. Sounds like me. The turret could be my secret home, which would be a big victory because once upon a time I couldn't have climbed its stairs. I am totally in love with this idea until I wonder if I would be lonely. But I don't know who I would invite to live with me in my books, except it would not be my mother. I open the main carriage house door and discover a large empty garage with a cracked concrete floor and cobwebby light bulbs hanging from the ceiling. It is not inspiring. Lasai, I remarked, Georgia. I am taking first year French. Okay, I have been using any excuse to delay is the truth, which is why I am late. Why delay, you ask? Well, it is because I am uncertain about this meeting. However, I was invited, I remind myself. So Georgia and I mount the metal spiral stairs. I can go up spiral stairs. I am extra careful as they are tricky. To the second floor landing, and there I find a door which is closed. Boldly I rap and speak. Hello, Student Leaders Club. Yeah, we're in here. It's him. I lean on Georgia then. He has rarely spoken to me, but he smiles at me in the halls at school, and he does it like he sees me. Antoine Dubois smiles at everyone, though. That's who he is. As for me, I am someone who, when I reach for the doorknob and turn it and push, the door does not open. Sometimes I think I've got a fairy godmother who believes that accessibility challenges are educational and fun, and so she puts random freaky obstructions above and beyond ordinary things like no elevator or ramp between me and wherever I want to go. I tuck Georgia into the crook of my elbow and try again to open the door, rattling the doorknob like mad until on the other side Antone shouts with amusement, Hey, whoever you are you pushing? The door opens out. Pull. On the other hand, maybe I should be less judgy about my fairy godmother. I pull and the door opens easily. Before me is a big carpeted room furnished with chairs and a couple of old couches. There are 4 other kids inside. One girl standing, one girl pacing, a boy in my turret with his back to me, and another boy looking at me who is Antoine Dubois. Antone. He sits on the more hideous of the 2 couches with his long legs. He is tall and quite skinny, folded before him and his chin resting on one of his hands, which are oversized. His skin matches his eyes, which are deep brown. You could drown in them, or I could. Okay, I have the tiniest of crushes on Antoine, and I even read the Wikipedia entry on Haiti, which is where his parents emigrated from. In Haiti, they speak French and Haitian Creole, which is a language based on French, it turns out. It might possibly be that this is one reason why I picked French and not Spanish to study. I'd burst into song, but singing is not my best route to impressing anyone. Besides, it would be odd. I have not figured out my best route to impressing people yet, so instead I simply am glad I didn't stay out in the storm, splashing in puddles and drinking rain and generally catching my death. To quote my mother, who thinks that death is lurking 24/7 with a Sarah Linda-sized net. Maybe because he hasn't fully grown into his legs and arms yet, there is something goofy about Antone's looks, which is part of why I like him despite not knowing him. The thing is that when Antone smiles, he is all dimples and unmistakable sincerity. In short, he is not intimidating even though so tall. He is a senior class president, which is no wonder. I would have voted for him too if I were a senior. Hey, you made it. Excellent. Welcome. I am suddenly hyper-aware of my saturated hair and face and hands and how stupid I was just now on the other side of the door. Still, I manage to smile back at Antone, and I contribute to the conversation. I say, Hi. Alright, so my thoughts are Sarah Linda must have been in a wheelchair at one point and is now able to walk again. And she's enjoying it very, very much. And Son Boy comes in and is class president of this club that she's going to. She's taking up French because he is French and Hayden is what he speaks fluently. So she wants to impress him. So she's doing all these things just to impress a guy, which I'm totally not on board with. Because if you're going to impress somebody, it's not because you went to the depths that you did to impress them. And then talking about how her mother says it's going to catching death 24/7 in a Sarah Linda inspired net, or however they put it. I don't think so, guys. I think I would have passed. Alright. Next we have Alone by Lisa Gardner. I don't know if you guys remember the synopsis. I know I read this one on my other video, but I'll go ahead and read it again in case you didn't check that video out first. Hold on. Alright, sorry. Like I said, it's like 2 o'clock in the morning. I just heard like yelling and shouting. There was a fight that just broke out across the way. What's crazy is my windows are closed and I can hear them. Okay. The shouting and yelling back and forth at each other finally stopped. So, it's time to get comfy again. Alright, like I said, we got Lisa Gardner's Alone. So, who can you turn to when you're at your most vulnerable? State Trooper Bobby Dodge. Something a tense hostage standoff through the scope of his sniper rifle. Dodge has only 1 second to react, or a woman and her child may die. Where can you hide when this killer comes? The woman at the other end of Bobby Dodge's rifle isn't only in trouble, she is trouble. Cool, beautiful, and dangerously sexy, Catherine Rose Gagnon's life will change in an instant of violence. It's the most terrifying place to be. When Bobby pulls the trigger, someone will die, and then no one will be above suspicion, no one beyond harm, and no one will see death coming until it has them cornered, helpless, and alone. So, let's just go ahead and get into it. This one's a little bit older. This one's 2005. Alright, you ready? I'm not really anticipating this one, which is weird, but it's true. He put in a 15-hour shift the night the call came in. Too many impatient drivers on 93, leading to too much crash, bang, boom. City was like that this time of year. The trees were bare, night coming on quick, and the holidays looming. It felt raw outside. After the easy camaraderie of summer barbecues, walked alone through city streets, hearing nothing but the skeletal rattle of dry leaves skittering across cold pavement. Lots of cops complain about the short gray days of February, but personally, Bobby Dodge had never cared for November. Today did nothing to change his mind. His shift started with a minor fender bender, followed by 2 more rear enders from northbound gawkers. 4 hours of paperwork later, he thought he'd gotten through the worst of it. Then in early afternoon, when traffic should have been a breeze, even on the notoriously jam-packed 93, came a 5-car pileup as a speeding taxi driver tried to change 4 lanes at once, and a stressed-out ad exec in a Hummer forcefully cut him off. The Hummer took the hit like a heavyweight champ. The rusted-out cab went down for the count and took out 3 other cars with it. Bobby got to call 4 wreckers, then diagram the accident, and then arrest the ad exec when it became clear the man had mixed in a few martinis with his power lunch. Pinching a man for driving under the influence meant more paperwork, a trip to the South Boston barracks, now in the middle of rush hour traffic when no one respected anyone's right-of-way, not even a trooper's, and another altercation with the rich ad exec when he balked at entering the holding cell. The ad exec had a good 50 pounds on Bobby. Like a lot of guys confronted by a smaller opponent, he confused superior weight with superior strength and ignored the warning signs telling him otherwise. The man grabbed the door jamb with his right hand. He swung his lumbering body backwards, expecting to bowl over his smaller escort, and what? make a run for it through a police barracks swarming with armed troopers. Bobby ducked left, stuck out his foot, and watched the overweight executive slam to the floor. The man landed with an impressive crash, and a few troopers paused long enough to clap their hands at the free show. I'm going to fucking sue, the drunken exec screamed. I'm going to sue you, your commanding officer in the whole fucking state of Massachusetts. I'll own this joint. You hear me? I'll fucking own your ass. Bobby jerked the big guy to his feet. Ad exec screamed a fresh round of obscenities, possibly because of the way Bobby was pinching the man's thumb. Bobby shoved the man into the holding cell and slammed the door. If you're going to puke, please use the toilet, Bobby informed him, because by now the man had turned a little green. Ad exec flipped him off. Then he doubled over and vomited on the floor. Bobby shook his head. Rich prick, he muttered. Some days were like that, particularly in November. Now it was shortly after 10 p.m. Ad exec had been bailed out by his overpriced lawyer. The holding cell was washed down, and Bobby's shift, which had started at 7 a.m., was finally done. He should go home, give Susan a buzz, catch some sleep before his alarm went off at 5, and the whole joyous process started once more. Instead, he was jittery in a way that surprised him. Too much adrenaline buzzing in his veins when he was a man best known for being cool, calm, and collected. Bobby didn't go home. Instead, he traded in his blues for jeans and a flannel shirt, then headed for the local bar. Of course. At the Boston Beer Garden, 14 other guys were sitting around the rectangular-shaped bar, smoking cigarettes and nursing draft beer while zoning out in front of plasma screen TVs. Bobby nodded to a few familiar faces, waved his hand at the bartender, Carl, then took an empty seat a bit down from the rest. Carrie brought him his usual order of nachos. Carl hand-delivered his Coke. Long day, Bobby? Same old, same old. Susan coming in? Practice night. Hey, the concert. 2 weeks, right? Carl shook his head. Beautiful and talented. I'll tell you again, Bobby. She's a keeper. Don't let Martha hear you, Bobby told him. After watching your wife haul a keg, I don't want to think of what she could do with a rolling pin. My Martha's also a keeper. Mostly because I fear for my life. Carl left Bobby alone with his Coke and nachos. Overheard a live news bulletin was reporting on some kind of situation reverie. A heavily armed suspect had barricaded himself in his home after taking pot shots at his neighbors. Now Boston PD had deployed their SWAT team and nobody was taking any chances. Yeah, November was a funny kind of month. Wired people up, left them with no defenses against the oncoming gloom of winter, left even guys like Bobby doing all they could to do just to hold course. He finished his nachos, he drank his Coke, he settled his bill, and just as he convinced himself it really was a good idea to go home, the beeper suddenly activated on his belt. He read the screen one moment and was bolting out the door the next. It had been that kind of day, now it would be that kind of night. Catherine Rose Gagnon didn't like November much either, though for her the real problem had started in October 22nd, 1980 to be exact. The air had been warm, the sun a hot kiss on her face as she walked home from school. She'd been carrying her books in her arms and wearing her favorite back-to-school outfit, knee-high brown socks, a dark brown corduroy skirt, and a long-sleeved gold top. I already know where this is going. A car came up behind her. At first she didn't notice, but dimly she became aware of the blue Chevy slowing to a crawl beside her. A guy's voice. Hey, honey, can you help me for a sec? I'm looking for a lost dog. Later, there was pain and blood and muffled cries of protest, her tears streaking down her cheeks, her teeth biting her lower lip. Then there was darkness in her tiny, hollow cry. Is anyone out there? And then for the longest time there was nothing. They told her it lasted 28 days. Catherine had no way of knowing. There was no time in the dark, just a loneliness that went on without end. There was cold and there was silence, and there were the times when he returned, but at least that was something. It was a sheer nothingness, endless streams of nothingness that could drive a person insane. Hunters found her, November 18th. They noticed the plywood cover, poked it with their rifles, and were startled to hear her faint cry. They rescued her triumphantly, uncovering her 4x6 earthen prison and releasing her into the crisp fall air. Later she saw newspaper photos, her dark blue eyes enormous, her head skull-like, her body thin and curled up on itself, like a small brown bat that had been yanked harshly into the sun. The papers dubbed Catherine the Thanksgiving miracle. Her parents took her home. Neighbors and family paraded through the front door with exclamations of, "Oh, thank heavens," and "just in time for the holidays," and "Oh, can you really believe?" Catherine sat and let people talk around her. She slipped food from the overflowing trays and stored it in her pockets. Her head was down, her shoulders hunched around her ears. She was still the little bat, and for reasons she couldn't explain, she was overwhelmed by the light. More police came. She told them of the man of the car. They showed her pictures. She pointed at one. Later days, weeks, did it really matter? She came to the police station, stared at a lineup, and solemnly pointed her finger once again. Richard Umbria went on trial 6 months later, and 3 weeks into that, Catherine took the stand with her plain blue dress and polished Mary Jane's. She pointed her finger one last time. Richard Umbria went away for life, and Catherine rose to return home with her family. She didn't eat much. She liked to take the food and slip it in her pocket or simply hold it in the palm of her hand. She didn't sleep much. She lay in the dark, her blind bat eyes seeking something she couldn't name. Often she held quite still to see if she could breathe without making a sound. Sometimes her mother stood in the doorway, her pale white hands fluttering anxiously at her collarbone. Eventually, Catherine would hear her father down the hall. "Come to bed, Louise. She'll call if she needs you." But Catherine never called. Years passed. Catherine grew up, straightening her shoulders, growing out her hair, and discovering that she possessed the kind of dark, potent beauty that stopped men in their tracks. She was all pale white skin, glossy black hair, and oversized navy eyes. Men wanted her desperately, so she used them indiscriminately. It wasn't her fault. It wasn't their fault. She simply never felt a thing. Her mother died in 1994, cancer. Catherine stood at the funeral and tried to cry. Her body had no moisture, and her sobs sounded papery and insecure. She went home to her barren apartment and tried not to think of it again, though sometimes, out of the blue, she would picture her mother standing in the doorway of her room. "Come to bed, Louise. She'll call if she needs you." "Hey, honey, I'm looking for a lost dog." November 1998. The Thanksgiving miracle curled up naked in her white porcelain tub, her thin, bony body trembling from the cold as she clutched a single razor in her fist. Something bad was going to happen, a darkness beyond darkness, a buried box from which there would be no coming back. "Come to bed, Louise. She'll call if she needs you." "Hey, honey, I'm looking for a lost dog." The blade so slender and light in her hands, the feel of its edge kissing her wrist, the abstract sensation of warm, red blood lining her skin. The phone rang. Catherine roused herself from her lengthy long enough to answer it, and that single call saved her life. The Thanksgiving miracle rose again. She thought about it now, as the TV blared in the background. An armed suspect has barricaded himself in his home after taking numerous shots at his neighbors. Boston SWAT officials consider the situation highly volatile and extremely dangerous. As her son sobbed in her arms, "Mommy, Mommy, Mommy," and as her husband bellowed from below, "I know what you're doing, Kat. How stupid do you think I am? Well, it's not going to work. There's no way in hell you're going to get away with it. Not this time." Jimmy stormed up the stairs, heading for their bedroom. The phone had saved Catherine before. Now she prayed it would save her once again. "Hello? Hello? 911? Can you hear me? It's my husband. I think he's got a gun." What? Okay. Mind changed. This is a keep. She's in the tub. Okay, first of all, she was kidnapped and rescued. Grew up pretty much normal. I mean, she lost her family and stuff, and then got another family. She has a son. She's in the tub. She hears the news report going off, and it's her husband? And that's why her son's sitting there screaming, "Mommy, Mommy," to her? What? Sold. Back on the bookshelf. Wow. Wow. Alright, sorry about that. That was a very raw reaction. Okay, I'm speechless for that. That was surprising. Alright, so next we got Celia Rivenbark. Her book, You Don't Sweat Much for a Fat Girl. This is observations on life from the shallow end of the pool. She's also the author of the column Driving While Shaving. Never heard of it. So, this is from 2011. I'll just read you some of these interesting chapter titles. There's Taking the Class Out of Yoga, which is the one we're going to read. When Underwater Jokes Bomb, the Terrorists Win. Movies to-do list, Cook Like Julia, Adopt Really Big Kid. Kiosk Biatch makes mall trip treacherous. Moral Fiber Can't Help Your colon. Twitter woes, I've got plenty of characters, just no character. Bitter, Party of Me. Road trip to Nawatka, Russa's Suspicions. Breakfast with Fabulous. Looney's Glitter Landscape of the Learning Channel. There was one on here that was Chinese bachelors will be lucky to find cougar. Menopause spurs thoughts of death in Turkey. I dreamed that my lashes were long. Animal tales and one stupid human trick. She drives me crazy. Shaving time off the commute and Teen Angel. Alright, so here we go. Happy, happy, joy, joy. There's staggeringly good news on the health and fitness front at last. Are you sitting down? I mean, if you're like me, you're almost always sitting down, which isn't such a bad thing, as you're about to learn. Turns out, a 12-year-long study in Denmark has concluded that women who have skinny thighs have twice the risk for heart disease as us normal women. Can I get a na-na-na-na-na? Na-na-na-na? My fluffy cistern. In your face, you supermodels with your spaghetti stems. Somebody please pass the pork fat and let me get on with the very serious business of avoiding a heart attack. I'm all about being heart healthy. The study followed 2,800 Denmarkse. Yeah, I know, but the real name makes me hungry, and discovered that the portion of the population with thighs smaller than 23.6 inches in circumference had twice the risk of heart disease. Okay, I'm going to tell you right now really quick before I go on, I do not know what inch my thighs are. I might not even fit in this category, but this is kind of cute. Okay, to be honest, I thought that 23.6 inches sounded like a lot of inches when I first read that. I mean, that's like almost 2 feet of inches if my math memory is correct. So I got out the old tape measure, and y'all, guess what? My thighs, which are actually kind of ginormous, are exactly 23.5 inches. Too much information? Suck it. I'm fit by Denmarkian standards. The study doesn't explain why thicker thighs make a healthier heart, but who the hell cares? And yes, I want fries with that communion wafer. There's some speculation that it's because thinner people, hereinafter referred to as the damned, have less muscle mass to initiate the metabolic breakdown of lipids and glucose. If you hear any banging in the kitchen, my cat is being a total asshole. I mean, that's the first thing I thought when I read about it, sorta, if you remove the part about metabolic breakdown of lipids and glucose. This news came with caveats, of course. Caveat is a Latin word which means dead person or funny neckerchief, I forget which. Anyway, the big caveat is that people who have thighs quite a bit bigger than the delightful and healthful 23.6 inches in circumference, in other words, anyone who has ever eaten a turkey leg at Disney World and wondered why they have to be so damn small, aren't healthier by nature. They have gone and gotten themselves a bad case of an over-healthy heart, I guess. Scientifically speaking, the study finds that a woman who is barely over 5 feet tall and weighs 135 pounds is half as likely to have heart disease as, say, Heidi Klum. Now, before all you supermodels get your Versace's in a wad and accuse me of wanting you to have heart problems, let me hasten to say that nothing could be further from the truth. Scurvy, maybe. Pellagra, possibly, but not heart trouble. It also should be noted that Denmark is frequently the winner in the annual poll of the world's happiest countries. Small wonder. I'd be happy too if I lived in a country where big thighs were considered healthy and desirable. This breaking news from Denmark came out just about the same time as a Time magazine cover story on the myth of exercise, in which a very learned scholar wrote that, while it's good for you, exercise won't make you lose weight. In fact, and this part cracks me up, exercise can actually lead to weight gain because of the notion that you're entitled to wolf down a platter of nachos the size of a hubcap at On the Border after a half-hour workout on the spawn of Satan, elliptical machine. Your chickens have come home to roost, you diet-obsessed hand-wringers, and I want mine fried with a side of tater salad, extra mayo for my heart, natch. Ever since I read about the study of the proud Denmarkians and the Time exercise story, I've been thinking about cutting out my weekly yoga at the art museum, but I like it too much, except for the parts where the middle school class is taking tours past the Mary Caslets and so forth point and laugh at us when our asses are in the air for downward facing hag, or whatever you should call a roomful of mostly middle-aged but undeniably enlightened womenfolk in loose clothes. What if all this yoga makes my thighs get smaller? Still, I'd hate to give it up because yoga really does give me a certain peace and clarity of spirit. Okay, I made that up. It just feels good to be somewhere for a whole hour without anybody being able to find me and ask me to do some shit for them. I'm fairly certain that's why it was invented many decades ago by Yogi Berra, a famous baseball player who was excellent at avoiding real work. Never saw myself as a yoga type person, but then I read Eat, Pray, Love, whose author, the glowy, flowy Elizabeth Gilbert, described how her deep and intense voyage of self-discovery, which included dumping her perfectly nice husband and visiting several different continents, led her to realize that she could eat 9 pizzas at one sitting in Italy and still feel good about it if she was headed to India to do some yoga. I think there was a little more to the book than that, but that was my favorite part. Yoga just sounds so cool. Our teacher, a young woman, fairly bursting with good health, meets us where we are, so to speak. You can rest when you need to, she said on the first day of class, seeming to look at me for a long time, perhaps because I was the only one who had never had so much as a smidgen of yoga before. She knew this because I announced it repeatedly, so she'd set the bar pretty low. I was delighted that she understood, and so I did rest. For an hour. Just lay there on the purple yoga mat my friend Christy Kramer got on a yard sale for 50 cents and loaned me when I told her I didn't want to invest a whole lot of money into this yoga stuff until I was sure I'd like it. Sure, some of the other women looked puzzled when I laid down and stayed down, but what can I tell you? It was the first time in for frickin' ever that I had some me time, phone off, panties granny, and it felt wonderful. Laying there while the others practiced some serious deep breathing and challenging poses like "Oh Pussy in the Sky" or some such, I understood why everybody loves yoga. I went to sleep and was awakened an hour later by the instructor gently kneading at my thigh, my perfect, enormous thigh. Trying to sleep here? I mumbled, but she just smiled at one of those real peaceful yoga-induced smiles. We want to keep the muscles as relaxed as possible. Was she high? If I was any more relaxed, I'd be in an urn on somebody's mantle. I was deliciously relaxed and now understood why people who take naps in the middle of the day always feel so refreshed. At this rate, I'd be one of those irritating people who has a license plate holder that reads, "My other car is a yoga mat." Okay, maybe not. After that, she announced that we would take some deep breaths and thank our sun gods or something like that. It involved putting out your hands in front of you and making a praying gesture for about 2 seconds. Oh, you found the empty one. Which, let me tell you, my muscles paid for the next day. I practically couldn't get out of bed. Yoga is going to be a much better fit for me than, say, Pilates, which, because I was raised Southern Baptist, I mispronounced for a really long time until my unchurched heathen friend told me it had nothing to do with Pontius Pilate. It's pronounced Pilates. she said with clear irritation. She is one of those snooty types who talks a lot about how all the hypocrites are in church and she believes that God is everywhere around her. Not meaning to be cruel, I hope for his sake this wasn't true the day she seriously cut one in yoga class. That's the dirty little secret about yoga, all the pooting that goes on. Sure, you can try to sneak it out in low gear, so to speak, but everybody still knows. So while you're in your loving warrior stance, when you should be breathing deeply and feeling the life force gum up your chakras or whatever, you're just worried to death that the whole class is going to hear you fart out loud. I'm not sure how Elizabeth Gilbert dealt with that because there's no way you could eat 9 pizzas for lunch and then go to yoga. Even if it was a few days later, you'd still be floating up in the air like that idiot balloon boy. I think I'll keep doing yoga for a while, staying away from the new Yoga Lights class I've heard about, which combines yoga and Pilates with a foamy cappuccino concoction from the sound of it. After all, even though I'm not making real progress in the meditative closing moments when I'm supposed to be open to the universe and instead routinely making my grocery list in my head and worry about how unfair it is for me to need gum grafts at the same exact time that my kid needs orthodontia, and where the hell is all that money going to come from? The instructor says that all of this openness to the will of the universe takes time. One doesn't just leap into meditation. It can take years of practice. Even Elizabeth Gilbert said that. But in the meantime, while I'm waiting for that to kick in, I'll continue to eat pizza. Just for the sake of my heart, you know? Alright, so that kind of sounds good. So I think I'm going to keep that because it does sound pretty funny. Alright, next we got Mary Higgins Clark. I've got my eyes on you. Just give me 1 second. I know this is going to be like a super long video, and I apologize. If you made it this far, this is the 4th book out of 6. So if you made it this far, go ahead and like the video and leave a comment of what your favorite book is, and maybe I'll check it out. Alright, so really quick, I did sneak a little peek. This is from 2018, and there's an acknowledgements part, and then this chapter is actually super short. So we're probably going to end up doing 2 chapters, maybe 3. We're going to do 3 chapters because these chapters are extremely short. Like, chapter 2 alone is just half the page. That's it. So, here we go. This newest book is finished, and it is time to thank all the people who share their expertise and those who encourage me along the way. Michael Corda. Oh, yeah, we're not doing the acknowledgements part because I can never pronounce these names from these companies. Alright, chapter 1. Jamie was in his room on the 2nd floor of his mother's small Cape Cod house in Saddle River, New Jersey, when his life changed. For a while, he had been looking out the window to watch Carrie Dowling's backyard. She was having a party, and Jamie was mad because she hadn't invited him. When they were in high school together, she was always nice to him, even though he was in special classes. But Mom had told him that it was probably just a party only for Carrie's classmates who would be leaving for college next week. Jamie had graduated from high school 2 years ago and now had a good job stocking shelves in the local Acme supermarket. Jamie didn't tell Mom that if the kids at the party started swimming in Carrie's pool, he was going to go over and swim with them. He knew Mom would be mad at him if he did that, but Carrie always invited him to swim in her pool when she was swimming. He watched from the window of his room until all the kids went home and Carrie was alone outside on the patio cleaning up. He watched the end of his video. He decided to go over and help her, even though he knew Mom would not want him to. He slipped downstairs where Mom was watching the 11 o'clock news and tiptoed behind the hedges that separated his small backyard from Carrie's big one. But then he saw someone come into the yard from the woods. He grabbed something off a chair and came up behind Carrie. Do not. Sorry, my cat's trying to jump up on the, tallest shelf that I have that has breakables up there. So, no. But then he saw... Oh, shit. I already read that part. He hit her on the head and pushed her into the pool. Then he threw something away. Nah! Get your butt down. Stop. I don't know why you do this when I get on video. You're not supposed to hit people or push them in pools, Jamie thought. The man should say he's sorry or he might get a timeout. Carrie's swimming, so I can go swimming with her, he told himself. The man didn't go swimming. He ran away from the yard and back into the woods. He didn't go in the house. He just ran away. Jamie hurried toward the pool. His foot kicked something that was on the ground. It was a golf club. He picked it up, carried it toward the pool, and put it on one of the chairs. He said, "Carrie, it's Jamie. I'll go swimming with you now." But she didn't answer him. He started to walk down the pool steps. The water looked dirty. He thought maybe somebody spilled something. But when he felt the water in his new sneakers soaking his pants up to his knees, he stopped. Even though Carrie always said he could swim with her, he knew that Mom would be mad if he got his new sneakers wet. Carrie was floating in the water. He reached out, touched her shoulder, and said, "Carrie, wake up." But Carrie just floated farther away, to the deep end of the pool, so he went back home. The news was still on the television, so Mom didn't see him when he sneaked back upstairs and went to bed. He knew his sneakers, socks, and pants were wet, so he hid them on the floor of his closet. Maybe they'll dry before Mom finds them, he hoped. As he was falling asleep, he wondered if Carrie was having fun swimming. Aww. Aww. Chapter 2. It was after midnight when Marge Chapman woke up and realized that she had fallen asleep while she was watching the news. She got up slowly, her arthritic knees creaking as she pulled herself up from her big, comfortable chair. Jamie had been born when she was 45, and that was when she started putting on weight. "I need to lose 25 pounds, she thought to herself, if only to give my knees a break. She turned off the lights in the living room, then went upstairs to look into Jamie's room before she went to bed. His light was out, and she could hear his even breathing, so she knew he was asleep. She hoped he hadn't been upset about not being invited to the party, but there was only so much she could do to protect him from disappointment. Chapter 3. At 11:15 on Sunday morning, Steve and Fran Dowling crossed the George Washington Bridge and headed to their home in Saddle River, New Jersey, in silence. Both were tired from their long day on Saturday. Friends from Wellesley, Massachusetts had invited them to a 27-hole member-guest golf tournament. They had stayed overnight and this morning had left early to pick up their 28-year-old daughter, Aileen, at Kennedy Airport and drive her home. Except for brief visits, she had been living abroad for 3 years. After the joyous reunion at the airport, a jet-lagged Aileen had climbed into the backseat of the SUV and fallen asleep. Suppressing a yawn, Fran sighed. "Getting up so early 2 days in a row reminds me of my age." Steve smiled. He was 3 months younger than his wife, so she hit all the birthday milestones, in this case 55, just before he did. "I wonder if Carrie will be up when we get home," Fran said, as much to herself as to her husband. "I'm sure she'll be at the front door waiting to welcome her sister," Steve replied, a smile in his voice. Fran had her cell phone to her ear and listened as her call again went to Carrie's voicemail. "Our sleeping beauty is still in dreamland," she announced with a chuckle. Steve laughed. He and Fran were both light sleepers. Their daughters were the opposite. 15 minutes later, they pulled into their driveway and woke up Aileen. Still half asleep, she stumbled into the house after them. "Dear God," Fran exclaimed as she looked around her usually tidy home. Empty plastic glasses and beer cans were on the coffee table and all over the living room. She walked into the kitchen to find an empty vodka bottle in the sink next to empty pizza boxes. Completely awake now, Aileen could tell her mother and father were upset and furious. She shared their feelings. 10 years older than her sister, she had an immediate sense that something was terribly wrong. If Carrie had a party, why didn't she have the brains to clean up afterward? Aileen asked herself, did she drink too much and pass out? Aileen listened as her mother and father hurried upstairs calling Carrie's name. They came back immediately. "Carrie isn't here," Fran said, her voice now filled with concern. "And wherever she went, she didn't take her phone. It's on the table. Where is she?" Fran's face was becoming pale. "Maybe she got sick and someone took her home or..." Steve interrupted her. "Let's start calling her friends. Someone is bound to know where she is." "The lacrosse team roster with phone numbers is in the kitchen drawer," Fran said as she began hurrying down the hallway. Carrie's closest friends were on the team. "Please let her be asleep at Nancy or Sinead's house," Aileen thought. She must have been in really bad shape if she forgot to bring her cell phone with her. "At least I can start to straighten up." She went into the kitchen. Her mother was starting to dial as her father read her a phone number. Aileen grabbed a large garbage bag from the cabinet. She decided to see if there was any junk on the back porch or the patio and pool area and headed there. What she saw on the porch startled her, a half-filled garbage bag on one of the chairs. When she glanced inside, she saw that it was stuffed with soiled paper plates, a pizza box, and plastic cups. Obviously, Carrie had started to clean up, but why would she have stopped? Uncertain about whether or not to tell her parents what she had found or to just let them keep making calls, Aileen went down the 4 steps to the patio and walked over to the pool. It had been open all summer, and she was looking forward to relaxing with Carrie in it before Carrie left for college, and she began her new job as a guidance counselor at Saddle River High School. The putter her parents would use to practice was lying across a chase lounge on the pool deck. Aileen leaned over to pick up the putter and looked down in horror. Her sister was lying at the bottom of the pool, fully dressed and absolutely motionless. Well, the Queen of Suspense has done it again. I'm interested because it wasn't the learning or special needs kid, and it wasn't her sister, and her parents weren't there. Thank you, Mary Higgins Clark. Thank you. And then these last two, okay, this one right here, The Color of Fear, it just does not sound like it's right up my alley. I'm going to check really quick and make sure it's not going to be super long, because I'm really starting to get tired and my voice is starting to go a little hoarse. Alright, so this next one and the one in the other book are going to be, like, really, really long. They're, the ones in here are based on the days, and it goes through the entire day. And there's 24 hours in a day, guys. So, with that being said, I'm going to cut it here, and I'll do these last two, in a part B. So, this will actually be Triad Chapter Part 1A. So, I do apologize. It's almost 3 o'clock in the morning, and my voice is going super hoarse, and I don't want to sound really awful when I read. And this is just, like, super long. It's, like, 10 or 12 pages long just for one chapter. Or one day, I should say. And this other one, it's, like, super tiny writing. And it's, got a prologue. And then it goes into the first chapter, which is a few pages. Quite a few pages. So I will go ahead and get that, taken care of at some point later on when my voice doesn't sound like this. I do apologize. I hope that you guys did enjoy this. I ended up keeping 3 books and getting rid of 1, and we still have 2 to get through, so I do apologize again, but I hope you understand, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!